How's it going, creeps? Welcome to episode 21 of Cinema Creep, a Black Mass Films podcast where we dissect all things vile, disgusting, and downright terrifying in the world of horror cinema. I'm Justin.
And I'm Andrew.
And this is our first episode going into the new year. So with that, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Everblack Coffee. Go to everblackcoffee.com, support those guys, order some coffee. It is what we drink here on the show. It's been my go-to coffee for a couple years now. It's fair trade. It's organic. It's super fresh, and it's probably the best coffee that you're ever going to drink, you know? So again, everblackcoffee.com. I know going into this next year, there's a lot of cool things happening over there. Some new flavors, and, you know, just some cool merch and stuff like that. So everblackcoffee.com. So 2020 is over.
Finally.
Yeah. This has been a hell of a year, dude.
Yeah, it's been crazy, man. Like I said, I was lucky to navigate it a little bit better than a lot of people. I think the biggest problem for me was just stress related issues. Definitely. Right? You know, like I was lucky, although it sucked at times, to remain an essential worker throughout the entire year. So like financial burdens weren't so real like they were for a lot of people, but more or less it was, you know, political stress and stress related to having to navigate the career landscape, right? With all this stuff going on, having to be at work and making sure I'm super careful.
Yeah, well, that and we both work at the same place. We're not going to mention the company, but we work in a warehouse, a fairly big warehouse. And when, you know, the pandemic hit, like a lot of people would think, oh, well, that means, you know, warehouses aren't going to be pumping out a lot of stuff. But it you know, it doubled, almost tripled, it seemed, because everyone was ordering online. So it's not like it just went away. You know, you've got people that would normally go and shop in stores, shopping online now, and then you've got people freaking out, so they're buying an excess of stuff. So just a lot of
toilet paper sales are through the roof.
Toilet paper, yep. So lots of overtime at our current day jobs, and you know, it was pretty hectic, but super, you know, thankful to actually have a job during this time. I know a lot of people lost their jobs and stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're lucky we work for, you know, a pretty damn good company, you know, and they did right by us throughout the year, you know, and like Justin said, just having all the overtime, so making even more money than previous years was always something awesome to look forward to, but it detracts from a lot of our side stuff that we do. So a lot of our creative endeavors, like our filmmaking career, that was a big burden that was a big stress, right? This year, Justin is not being able to get out a lot of these productions that we already had, one ongoing and two planned for 2020. Yep. And that was because we were trying to do the responsible thing, right? And not get, you know, crews and talent all together and maybe possibly spread this virus. But I think as Justin and myself are sort of watching how other productions and Hollywood and stuff are dealing with this new normal. Like, I think going into 2021, we have started to really learn how to put these productions of our own back into effect in a safe way. And I think that's going to be alleviate a lot of that stress for us in 2021. It's just getting that creative, you know, that creative itch scratched, you know.
Yeah, well, it's just a matter of relearning how to navigate, you know, the film industry. So, other than that, like, you know, what have you been trying to do? Because I've never been one for like resolutions, right? Because a lot of people set these like just crazy, well, I'm just gonna lose weight, and it's like, okay, well, like I'm more specific. Like I want to set, you know, very specific goals. So I usually try to tell myself, well, this year I'm going to make this many, you know, videos for my YouTube channel, or I'm going to set out to write this many screenplays, and I'm at least by this part of the year going to have these things accomplished, instead of just very general things. Even if it's something small, like I've got a list of films that for the last couple of years I've been sleeping on just because I haven't had time or for whatever reason just haven't checked out yet. So I want to briefly touch on those in a second. But so what are you like as far as 2021 is concerned? Like, what are
Yeah,
some things that you're trying to do?
as far as resolutions go, like, I hate it when people say resolutions are stupid. And I think anytime somebody wants to get it in their mind, whether they follow through with it or not, like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to better this part of my life, or I'm going to finally do this. Yeah, of course, you should be doing that all year long. But I'm a big fan of people wanting to better their situation or better themselves or finally, take that risk that they've been putting off, So, like, I love to hear people's New Year's resolutions. And I don't typically make them because normally I whether I follow them or not, I set these milestones for myself throughout the year. So I'm always having these resolutions, but
Right. Well,
um,
I mean, I think because I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying like they're a waste of time. I think you're explaining it more like what I was trying to say is it's like everyone, it's like Valentine's Day, right? Everyone waits for that time of year to do something. It's like I'm all about setting goals throughout the year. And then if you're going to set New Year's goals, make them more specific. Like, I power lift. So instead of me saying, oh, I want to lose weight or some general thing like that, I'm like, okay, well, this year, I want to hit a 500-pound squat. Or if you're someone that's trying to get more healthy, it's like, well, what do you do? And like, you say this year, I want to cut X amount of calories out of my diet, or I want to, hit X amount of miles walked or jogged a week, like more specific like that, but also not just doing it once a year, doing it for the long road and, reassessing yourself throughout the year instead of just at the
no,
beginning.
yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I know that you're not one of those people that say it's stupid. But I mean, just in general, like if
Right.
you log on social media, you see it all day long. People saying it's stupid. And I do have
That's
a
just
few
people
set, right?
thinking, that's just people on social media. They want to call everything stupid. Like people
So
now
I
want to
guess
complain about everything.
I guess like for me personally, I've thought about it a little bit the last couple of days of things that I do want to double on or double down on in 2021. And it's one of the things you touched on, two of the things you touched on actually. One is getting more in shape. Like
You want to hit a
I'm
500-pound squat?
yeah, no. So like I am pretty like I guess in shape, when it comes to, I hike constantly and I was looking back and through like my phone and my app, my health tracker stuff, I walk an average of 5 to 7 miles every single day, which is pretty gnarly. So like I'm always active and I'm always moving, and I was doing the skateboarding cardio kind of shit, but I really was talking to Justin because Justin works out a lot and about, not getting in the gym because I'm not ready to go out in that part of, like being a confined space with other people because of the virus, but more or less like buying home gym equipment and really doing some strength training at home. So that's something, a lot of self-improvement stuff, as well as working through a lot of like procrastination issues that I have. So those are my two big things.
Well, that'll also like, I know you guys listening to like, this isn't what are you guys doing? We'll get to the film in a minute, but it being the new year, like it's nice to, assess like where you are, what you want to do. But like, so with you wanting to get into strength training and stuff too, what I've realized is, so I've lifted like a good portion of my life, like since I was in my teens, but I've never taken it super, super seriously until like the last probably 2 years. So, I've been powerlifting now for about a year. I've not gotten to compete yet for several reasons. One of the things I was training for, I had to drop out of because I had got appendicitis. And then the second one got canceled at the beginning of this year because of the pandemic. So that's neither here nor there. But what I was going to say is what I've noticed with lifting. A lot of people, they're like, well, I don't want to exercise or lifting stupid. I don't want to be a muscle bound, like whatever. Like there's different ways of training, like as far as the physicality goes, it just depends on what your goals are. But as far as mentally, some of my most like creative moments are right after I've lifted, because it's like everyone thinks it's strictly a physical thing, but like, you like your endorphins are going off. You've got like mental clarity. So I think that's one thing that's helped me really stick to it consistently over the last couple of years too, is after I lift, like I'm like, I want to do stuff. Like, I got my blood flowing, I got some exercise in, it's good for your heart. Like I want to just sit down and now I'm going to write, or I'm going to go make this video or whatever. So I think with that, snowballs other things. So
Yeah, no, I agree. So, yeah. So New Year's resolutions, it's a big thing. So let's talk about this New Year's Evil from 1980.
yeah, well, real quick before we transition into that, talking about movies, I said I'm going to watch some like films that I've slept on the last couple of years. I do eventually want to do episodes on these, so we're not really going to talk about them. I'm just going to kind of name drop them. So if you haven't seen One Bedroom or One BR, go watch that immediately. I don't know if you've watched that one yet, but
No.
it is fantastic. Came out in 2019. I've always seen the trailers and stuff for it. I just never actually watched it, but it's super fucking good. And I just before we started filming this podcast, finally watched Elijah Wood's Come to Daddy. Holy fuck. That was a good fucking film.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
That dude, like everyone knows him for The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, but the contributions that this dude has been making to the horror community, with his production company and the Maniac remake that he was in, and now Come to Daddy. The dude's killing it in horror. He's got very specific acting style in those films. And even like as far as just the tone of those films is just refreshing compared to the other shit that's coming out. So with that, go watch 1BR and Come to Daddy. But with this being our first episode of the new year, it's only appropriate that we do, as Andrew just mentioned, New Year's Evil from 1980. So you can take it away for a little bit, because I'm looking at the audio waveforms here, and I've taken up most of this conversation.
Yeah, guys. So New Year's Evil from 1980. It plays on that trend where everybody started making holiday themed horror films. And, if you've never seen it, New Year's Evil is something that you wouldn't expect a lot from, just from the name. You'd be like, oh, good. That sounds like shit. But I actually really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, this came out the same year as Christmas Evil, right?
Yeah. And I think it's one of those films that's I think they kind of played the story pretty straightforward, and they didn't water it down with a lot of bullshit like Don't Open Till Christmas, or even Christmas Evil, where they just like started throwing so much shit in there. Like the story is very simple. At points it doesn't make much fucking sense, or maybe it does make sense, but it's just so simple. You're like, really, that's why our main villain is killing people? It's pretty fucking stupid. But like it seems like it could be very realistic with what everything happens in it. Like the police presence in this movie seems realistic, right? Like a lot of times your police play these bubbling ass idiots in these movies, and you're like, why the fuck are these cops doing what they're doing? But this one, it's like, well, that kind of makes sense.
Right.
So,
well, this is like a Lifetime slasher. Is the vibe I got from this.
I could see that. So we talked a little bit, Justin, about how many kills are going to dictate a slasher. And as I was watching this, I was like, fuck. Because I told you it needs to be at least 5.
Yeah.
You remember? Because you brought up Halloween, and I was like, yeah, let's just set our threshold at 5. And I was like, fuck, I want to talk about this being a slasher. And I was counting the kills, and we barely squeaked by with 6 in this one. I was like, yes, I'm right.
Slid into home.
But so taglines, like we're big fans of horror film taglines here at Cinema Crete, because
the cheesier the better.
Right, it's because that's what you see, displayed on like the posters and stuff at the theater, or what they would put in the trailer. So this has 2 main taglines. One is being a celebration of the macabre, kind of lame. But the next one, this New Year's, you're invited to a killer party, right? How can you beat that? So big fan of the taglines here. And this has a lot of people involved with it, Justin, that have done a lot of things. If you want to talk a little bit about that, because I know some
Yeah,
of them are
so
from some of your favorite.
so this has, you know, it's got cast that are from like random thing. Like I wouldn't even say they're like super big things, right? But it's a very colorful, like eclectic collection of the bodies of work of these people. So um it was directed by Emmett Alston, who I feel like has a little bit of a ninja obsession, because
Yep.
he has also directed Nine Deaths of the Ninja and Little Ninjas. I don't know if any of you guys remember Little Ninjas, but that was my shit. Um, so cinematography, Leonard Neubauer. So this was also so it was, yeah, written by Leonard Neubauer, cinematography by Thomas E. Ackerman, who has done Beetlejuice, George of the Jungle, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which, you know, Andrew and I have mentioned. That's one of the greatest Christmas films of all time. I absolutely love Beetlejuice. I used to like love all of the Tim Burton films back in the day, even though now they've kind of got like a trendy like side of them. But Beetlejuice is still like, it's just a classic. Which, you know, I guess all these people, like, since they work together, they're just like, let's just get around everyone who has colorful bodies of work, because the Kyoto brothers that did Killer Clowns from Outer Space, well, I wanted, we could do a whole episode on just them, because they've done things like, you know, Killer Clowns from Outer Space is like their only horror film they've ever done. But they've got a Netflix special now. It's a Christmas film called Alien Xmas, where it's like those Rankin Bass like style, you know, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like stop motion kind of things. It's about an alien that comes to Earth and like has to save Christmas from the rest of his alien race coming to steal everything from Earth. They did like all the stop motion stuff in Elf. They did the stop motion stuff in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So they're just like, oh yeah, you guys have colorful careers, so do we. So all these people have just worked on random stuff. Like some of the cast has been in things like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Happy Days. So, and then like he said, you know, Grant Kramer, who plays Derek in this film, which by the way gave me a very Terry from Blood Rage vibe.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, but he played Mike in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So really eclectic body of work from the entire cast and crew of this film. So the synopsis is during a New Year's Eve celebration, a Los Angeles disc jockey receives a phone call saying that when New Year's Eve strikes in each time zone, or New Year's strikes in each time zone, someone will be murdered and she will be the last one. So literally the entire film is exactly that. So she's like I don't know if any of you remember this stuff. Like I was at the tail end of this kind of thing going out, but so back in like the height of the 80s and like around the early 90s, there were these call-in like hotline television shows. And usually they were either contests or like some kind of giveaway or just some kind of like party thing for holidays and stuff. Like, do you remember many of those from when you were a kid? Like you're a couple years older than me, but you're not. But you were like probably more in the prime time of that stuff than I was.
Yeah, no, I remember them, and it was a lot of it was like charity
Yeah,
drives
yeah,
and shit like that. But
yeah. So
what was sick about this though? It was a very like horror themed, like evil is what they called it. Like, you know, they were calling it the Christmas Evil special, or I mean not Christmas Evil, New Year's Evil special, right? So and then she mentioned something about it's like a Saturday, like a normal Saturday night program. So and
yeah,
she's
well, she
known
was
as
saying that was like your last chance to be bad before the New Year's resolutions.
right. Yeah, I mean this particular show on this night was the New Year's Evil
Yeah,
special, but you know she talks about, you know, like it's an ongoing show that she has, and the rad part about it was all punk related, right? So she was
yeah.
like
It was
this
like new
punk,
wave and punk kind of deal.
so it was literally like a punk version of, I don't want to say Soul Train, but something similar, right? Because I mean, what else could you imagine the show would be? normally. Like
Yeah.
she literally had a stage in her studio there, and you had these new wave and punk bands playing, which takes us back, Justin, to one of our favorite things in horror, right? Is 80s punks.
Yep,
And
yep, the late 70s, early 80s punk. So any film that gets talked about on this podcast that touches on that gets automatic brownie points. Because this film literally opens with punks. Like they're cruising around in this convertible and they're just like yelling at everybody.
they're
Like
acting really fucking weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're but that's the thing, like all the 80s films, they portrayed punks like that. And it's just kind of like, do
And
any
that
of you
one girl
actually know
keeps
any punks though?
she keeps sticking her finger in that dude's mouth. Like, I'm
Yeah,
like,
and
what
he's
the
just like,
fuck?
yeah. It's
I'm like,
weird, but
I'm like, yeah, wait, wait 40 years and you won't be doing that shit.
yeah.
COVID-19 is gonna happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it opens up with the punks riding around Los Angeles, which is already gnarly because when you immediately start this film, you can already tell it's shot well, and that's part of Thomas Ackerman, the guy, the cinematographer we talked about, and it just automatically drew me into it because the way it shows Los Angeles, just the way it shows, a lot of these car shots, you can tell that it's well composed. And so I'm automatically like, okay, I'm fucking in this. And then you have these punks riding around, like Justin said, that gives you big brownie points, or gives us big brownie points here at Cinema Creep. But the glam metal track, the title track, New Year's Evil,
Yeah.
Justin, I know glam metal is your shit, so like I want to hear your
Fuck yeah.
opinion on this, but it's
So-
gnarly, right?
So this song, the reason I think it's funny is because this is supposed to be like, so the band Shadow, I think, is made for this film because I've tried to look them up. But so in this movie, while this New Year's Evil telethon is what they were called. That's the word I was looking for earlier. They're this band called Shadow, and they're like the hired band to play. There's another band that plays too called Made in Japan. But I've looked both those bands up, and I think they were created for this film. So the song they're playing is called New Year's Evil, and they're playing it during the telethon. It's also during the opening credit sequence. But to me, even though they were supposed to be like this new wave punk band, it sounded to me like Led Zeppelin and The Who were hanging out on New Year's Eve. They got completely trashed, and they were like, hey, we should write a fucking song. And then they recorded that song.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's New Year's Evil. But I don't know, like the band is they reminded me of like the way they dressed is like, the very early like punks, like the Cramps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like, cause they were doing like the very New York Dolls kind of, we need to get off this subject cause I'll talk about glam all day. But so back in the 70s, there was a crossover. I know a lot of people think like glam rock as being like hair metal, but it's a completely different thing. And during the 70s, there was a crossover of like punk and glam because you had like David Bowie and stuff like that. But then you had like the New York Dolls. So this band was like a mashup of all that stuff. Like they were wearing very specific kind of makeup and they were wearing just like, out there clothes. And the drummer of this band, like he kept doing that power pose. Did you see it?
Yeah. With his fist and shit.
With his fist. Yeah. But
like,
so I enjoyed it.
So
I got a kick
it.
out of it. Yeah, I would, if that was an actual band and they had an album, like I'd listen to it. But
yeah. And the world's most awkward mosh pit. Like,
oh my God. Yeah. So it cuts to this like random part of the same band though. That's what I thought was weird is the band is playing like all this random stuff. So they're playing like this blues kind of like super slow Stevie Ray Vaughan sounding shit that like people who dress like that would never listen to in a million years. And they're playing it and everyone in the crowd is like moshing, but super slow. It's almost like they're like zombified.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like zombies.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was really weird. But so the thing is like, so this telethon is going on and it's like a call-in show. And it's like you call in and you give your vote for the best hit of the year or whatever. So the host, she gets a phone call and it's this guy and he's using like a voice changer and he's telling her his name's Evil and he tells her he's going to kill people on the hour. So they're doing this in like three different cities. It's like Chicago, LA, New York, and like fucking Aspen, Colorado.
Yeah.
And he's going to kill somebody at midnight in all of the time zones. So that's literally the whole premise of the movie. And like she tells the cops and now they're looking for the guy. And, you know, just to jump straight to it, like turns out it's her fucking husband, right? And it goes into that whole, like this kind of film. It's always a guy with woman problems, like whether it's his mom or in this case, you know, it's hinted throughout the film that like she's a shitty mom, right? And she's also a shitty wife. Not like to the point where she should be, you know, treated the way she is in this film. But I won't even say like it's because she's a wife or a mom. It's more that she's like just a shitty person to her family because she's like blatantly ignoring them, right? Like there's the scene where her son tries to bring her flowers and he's telling her, you know, I got this part in a new film or a new series or whatever. And she like literally just blatantly ignores him. So
I mean, I would too. He's a fucking weirdo.
Well, he is a weirdo. Like, there's the scene where he fucking puts like the pantyhose over his face, and he's like
biting them in half and puts it over his and like pierces his ear with a fucking safety pin, and I don't know. So I mean, I understand what you're saying. You know, I think also though, like when you find out that the killer's her husband, he's talking about all the reasons why, you know.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely got some deep rooted fucking problems anyway, though.
Well, he says something like about her giving him his allowance or some shit like that. So it's like, well, maybe she's ignoring you because you're not a working fucking guy and she has to fucking be gone all the time, you know, like because she's fucking, you know, yeah. And the funny thing about this movie is that dude gave me a very, I know that you say Carl Sagan. You said he gave you like Carl Sagan vibes in the beginning, right?
Yeah,
He gave me a Bruce Jenner vibe, like very Bruce Jenner with like
I see
Kris
that,
Jenner.
Like, back in the day. Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck. I said this is literally like Bruce Jenner if he went crazy and started killing like Kris Jenner and like all of them. Like it would have been like some other shit, but.
Yeah, no, I want to point out, by the way, I'm not saying that like the events of this film, like the host, Diane was her name, right? I'm not saying she deserved it. I'm saying like they're trying to sell that though as the reason because she's very like all about her work and she's ignoring everyone around her. But then when it shows like the son and the dad reacting to it, it's obvious that they've got like other psychological issues. Because even when this film ends, like I don't want to give away the ending because this one is a film that I think, you know, it's not like a cinematic masterpiece, but you should all go check it out. It's worth a watch at least once in your life. But it does end in a very, because I hadn't seen this entire film before. I've seen parts of it, but this film ended exactly how I imagined it was probably going to. I don't know if you've seen this beforehand or
I actively have always avoided this film. This is literally my first time ever seeing it, and I absolutely loved it. And you know, I looked at IMDb and to see just what the rating was. I think it's like a 4.5 on there, and I'm like, really? I would give this a fucking 8. Like, I really enjoyed this, and I think because it was just so straightforward and didn't try, like I said before, didn't try and dance around on so much other bullshit.
Yeah. Well, speaking of bullshit, there's a lot of bullshit coffee going around in the world. So we're going to take a quick sponsor break to tell you about some coffee that isn't bullshit. And we will be right back. How's it going, creeps? One quick mid-episode break to tell you a little more about our sponsor. Since 2016, Everblack Coffee Company has delivered exceptional single-origin coffee and high fives all over the world. They understand that a cup of coffee is so much more than something you drink. That's why they source their beans from farms that only use fair trade and organic growing practices. When you buy coffee from Everblack, you can be certain that you're getting the highest quality coffee available by ethical means only. It's time to start looking at coffee differently. Head over to everblackcoffee.com and grab a bag for yourself. It's deliciously dark. Now back to the show. So another thing that I want to touch on with this film is it gave me, at least for the first half, until we finally figure out, well, even a little bit after we figured out who the killer was, Did you get Giallo vibes from this film? Because I got major Giallo, Argento especially, vibes from the first half of this film.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely I did it as well, you know.
They even did like when he's hiding in Yvonne's shower, or he pulls her into the shower, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't see like a face or anything. It's literally just leather gloves. That's a telltale sign of they were probably watching Deep Red or Tenebrae before they wrote the screenplay.
Well, and then you have to where he first is in the phone booth, like the very first time you see him changing his voice, you just see the top of his or like the side, his profile, you know, you don't see his entire face. And it's just little things like that. And then there's even some POV shots throughout the movie that's very like Giallo inspired. And I don't know, like I fucking absolutely,
which I love
like
it,
I said,
I get it.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get fucking so excited when I see a horror film, like an American horror film, give nods to Giallo, because, you know, we both love Argento, and I mean, Fulci's not really like Giallo so much, but as far as like specific Giallo, Argento is like fucking God. So some of my favorite horror films are Argento films. So every time I see any kind of nod to Giallo, or like a Giallo adjacent kind of vibe, I'm just like, did you see that shit? Did you see the fucking leather gloves? Fuck yeah. So I don't know, man. But even like a little bit after, you know, it was finally revealed, like some of it was just kind of Giallo-esque. Like even when he chases the girl and she's like under the bleachers, like that whole sequence just kind of felt Giallo to me. Like when the cops are standing at the other end of go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, like that scene when the cops are standing like at the other end of that little wooded area, and he's like stalking her, and it's like he knows where he is, but she's like fearing for her life under the bleachers. Like that's still, you see him and you see his face, but it still was paced like a Giallo.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you just look at this movie, there's just so many elements there, right? Because you have the Giallo-esque stuff, you have the tried and true American slasher stuff in there, you have the trope of it being based upon a holiday, and then you also have like your masked killer, because this dude, he has a mask in part of the movie, right? Which is almost comical because he doesn't
weird
need it.
Mask though. Yeah,
he doesn't need it. And at one point, he decides he's going to put on a fake mustache, and then another time
all he's gonna do is wear his fucking fake like Tom Selleck mustache.
And at another point, he dresses up like a preacher. So this dude is like doing some just like really out there type of shit. Like his New Year's Eve is super eventful. He has no problem with procrastinating like I do. But
I fucking like the part, speaking of when he's dressed as the preacher, and he's being chased by the biker gang, and they chase him, like he's trying to escape, and he's in the drive-in theater, which is playing trailers for two fucking awesome 60s horror films, by the way.
Right.
Fucking Bloodbath and Blood Feast. But anyway, the one biker like catches him running around the car. He's like, "Hey, asshole," and he's like, "I'm a man of God. I'm not a man of violence." And the biker starts laughing at him, and he's just like, "Here, fucking eat my knife, bitch." Stabs him in the fucking stomach.
Yeah.
I like that line literally when he said, I'm a man of God, not a man of violence. The way he said it was so like matter of fact. And then he just stabs him. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I really, really liked the guy that played that part. He came off as a sociopath really well. Made it really believable. Yeah, I don't know, Justin. When I look at this, like some of my favorite scenes are not necessarily even like kill scenes. You know, like the whole time when Evil, I guess is what I'm going to refer to him as, he picks up Lisa and Diane. You know, he's trying to pick up Lisa to kill her, right? And then Diane...
And he's so fucking annoyed because she just won't shut up.
She won't shut the fuck up in the car. Like, so he picks up Lisa, guys. He's trying to pick her up and take her somewhere to kill her. But, like, all of a sudden, if you've ever been a single person, doesn't matter if you're male or female, she's like, yeah, I'll be right back. And the next thing you know, she's bringing her stupid fucking roommate with her. And her friend just, like, pops up and she's like, oh... you wouldn't want me to go anywhere alone, would you? And he's like, God damn it. So like Diane is the roommate's name, and she comes along. You can already tell Evil is fucking annoyed. So they all get in the car together.
Wait, I thought, is her name Diane? I thought Diane was the host.
Oh, Diane is the host. What the fuck is her name? Why do I keep calling her Diane? Anyways, it's her roommate, right? It's Lisa's roommate. Not Diane. It's Lisa's roommate. And so in the car, it is a small little Mercedes coupe. And you have Evil driving. You have Lisa in the passenger seat. And it basically looks like the roommate is sitting on like the center console. And she just will not shut the hell up. And you can tell Evil is just trying to get to his destination to kill Lisa. But you have this woman in the middle just like talking her fucking head off about all this stupid shit, that like talking about how Lisa gets like anxiety shits or like anxiety diarrhea and all this other stuff. And like Evil's just like, God damn it.
Yeah, she's
It's like
talking
one of
about
my-
Zen and how she writes haikus, and he's like, haikus?
He's like, what the fuck
Really?
is that? Like,
Yeah, and she's like, it's Japanese poetry.
yeah, this dude
And
is hilarious. Just the way he's so annoyed. But it
He's
doesn't,
like gripping the steering wheel, like, shut up. And then he finally just turns the radio on.
but they don't try and deliver it like comedy either. And I think that's why it's so funny, because it never veers in that direction of this is a horror comedy. It's just like, fuck.
It's real life shit. Like, he's getting fucking irritated, which I think is then funny because he's finally like, you know what? Fuck this. He pulls over at the liquor store, tells the roommate to go in and like buy the biggest bottle of champagne she can get. So this part, I don't know why I thought this was just so fucking funny, but it's when he finally kills Lisa and he's like, you want to smoke a number? And she's like, yeah, sure. And he pulls out this huge bag of weed and he's like, it's Colombian. And he's like, here, smell. And she sticks her face in it. And then he like throws it over her head and suffocates her with it.
Yeah, it's a big Ziploc or freezer bag or some shit like that, and he suffocates her with it. But yeah, that's the roommate he kills, because Lisa he kills when she comes out, because Lisa's the one that went in the liquor store. So Lisa comes out and she has the liquor or whatever, the wine, and she's walking around and she sees like the stilettos or whatever and follows them around. And they're
he leaves like a trail of breadcrumbs, but it's like her clothes and purse and stuff.
Leading to the dumpster, right? Because he moved the car.
Yeah.
And then like she opens the dumpster and he's in there with a fucking lighter. And he like pulls her in.
He's just waiting for her. Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck? So those are my two favorite kills of the movie.
Yeah, they're probably mine. I do think it's funny though when the cops show up to that scene and they open the dumpster and the cat jumps out and they're just like, where the fuck this guy come from?
Yeah.
And he's like, I think this is blood. It's like, what the fuck?
Because it's so comical, but it's not in the same time, And one weird thing that happens with this movie is if we go back to the drive-in scene, is where Evil, he goes to escape the drive-in and he hops in that car. He pulls that guy out that's making out with that girl in the back of the car. And he basically hijacks the car and kidnaps her, right? And she's trying to offer him, or she's saying, well, I don't have much money. And then she's like
$3.
Yeah. And then she's like, well, you can have your way with me if you want. I won't say anything. She's just trying to get away. And which pisses him off because he's instantly like, well, because he hates women. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to kill her now that she's offering me sex. And so she gets out of the car because the cops show up, and she runs out.
No. Remember, he almost runs over those two guys. The two drunk guys walk out in front of the car.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And then she gets out and she takes off running through the woods, right?
Yep.
The drunk guys get the police there because Evil gets out flashing his fucking switchblade around. But what it makes this scene so like different is the girl actually gets away. Because she runs and she hides, and you're like, okay, well, she's fucking done for. But then Evil sees that the cops are hot on his trail, so he just runs off into the darkness. And you don't often see that in slashers where, there's like a chase, but the killer never follows through with it. He's just like, okay, well, I'll forget all about her. Because normally that's like a temporary thing, and then the killer gets him later on. This one, he's just like, well, fuck
now
it. I gotta go kill somebody.
He's starting to become more unhinged now too, which I want to point out. that actress's dialogue, for some reason, it didn't like throw me off, but it stuck out like as it kind of didn't belong, because this is like an 80s. Well, it's like it was probably like, production in 79 and it was released in 1980. Her dialogue to me seemed very like 50s, because she was like, when she's in the back of the car, she's like, if it's money you want, I don't have much, mister. She's like, we can do it if you want. I won't put up no fuss. It just I don't know. It just sounded very like,
Yeah, I did. Now that you
50s,
mention it.
50s to me. So
the cops, Justin, that's another thing I want to talk about in this movie is that the cops, they're not bumbling idiots, like I said, which is weird because in a lot of these movies.
I don't know. That one though. The one that gets knocked the fuck out is.
With the brick?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Somebody called him. They're like, hey, can you help me over? Or, Evil shows up and hides behind like a little parking garage wall. And he's like, hey, can you help me, officer? There's a drunk person out here or something like that. And the guy just walks out like, okay. And then he gets hit with a brick,
Well, yeah, but it's like you're supposed to be on high alert. Like the entire whole, like the hotel is on lockdown and you're all supposed to be guarding the entrances. And you just kind of, he literally yells, he's like, hey, officer, come here. I think I found a drunk. And he's just like, okay. And then that brick is the most fucking conveniently placed brick in all of horror cinema.
Hey, man. You always gotta keep a good brick around.
One. Yeah, it's just one fucking brick.
Would you say it's more conveniently placed than the one in Friday or less conveniently placed than the one in Friday that Debo got knocked the fuck out with? Because I don't know, man. That one was pretty...
That one was conveniently placed too, but this isn't horror cinema. Either way, they both got knocked the fuck out. So...
True that. So, Diane, let's talk about her untimely death, because I think we need to talk about, a little bit of the climax of this, because
she didn't die.
Well, true. She
came fucking
death.
Close.
She gets within an inch of dying. Because I forgot that she gets loaded into the ambulance at the end. Because I wish.
Well, I guess we can assume that she's probably actually gonna die though, the way that it ends.
Yeah, I wish she would have died. If you think about it, because the kill would have been so gnarly.
It would have. If she would have died the way that it was played out that she was supposed to. Because, the way it ends, it's kind of ambiguous. It's like, well,
that's another.
I don't know what happens now.
That's another reason this movie's different, right? And kind of plays more into like thriller genre or giallo genre, is because it doesn't do typical horror things, right? Because you would expect Diane to die because he chains her up to the bottom of an elevator, right? And he's basically
fucking like
it's gnarly.
Insane.
And he lifts the elevator all the way up to the top floor, and basically when it comes down, he's gonna smash her in between the elevator and like the bottom of the elevator shaft.
Which gives us one of the best fucking lines in the film, because he tells her, he's like, all right, go enjoy your New Year's party. Get smashed.
Yeah, which is fucking awesome.
And I was like, fuck yeah.
But, like I said, she doesn't get killed. She ends up making it to the ambulance, and our main antagonist, Evil, he kills himself. Because he goes up to the rooftop because the police are chasing him, and he goes up to the roof and he gives this little Hamlet dialogue about what does he say? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact words. He's like trying to like say some Shakespearean fucking like epic poetic shit.
But this guy doesn't know what a fucking haiku is, and then he jumps the fuck off the building. And then his son, which is Derek, him and Diane's son, the fucking super weird dude. That's that whole scene where he's in the pantyhose, just kind of like backstage at the telethon, is like super weird. But he finds out that his dad committed suicide, so he goes over there and starts, basically takes the mask that his dad was wearing, puts it on, gets in the driver's seat of the paramedic, the ambulance, and that's when his mom gets loaded in the back, and you're like, okay, is there going to be a New Year's Evil 2? Who knows?
Yeah.
I would fucking watch
Because
it.
he's kind of just like the paramedic loads her in the back. He's like, all right, let's get this thing rolling. And then the camera goes up and it shows that the driver is actually dead. And then it like shows that Derek is in the driver's seat and he's got the mask on. But no, I want to say this is like something, it's not a big deal, but this does the same thing. Like that's apparently been a theme over the last like 4 or 5 films we've watched. You notice when it cut to the close up of his face, like the color changed.
Yeah.
It was just like in Silent Night, Deadly Night. It got super dark and like yellow. But
I wonder if that's just because like their lens choices. I wonder if they're like, well, all we've got is a fucking, all we got is a 45 or a 50 mil and it's a 3.5, like, or something like that, where they couldn't expose it correctly or something like.
Yeah, that would. I feel like that explains like why, the exposure is different, but I just think it's weird, like, because it's almost like the exposure or during like the grading process, or I guess it's like the X process is like got messed up a little bit, like in the actual development of the film. Possibly. But it's just that one shot.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, but if you think about it, it also does that too during some of the performance shots of the bands, because it cuts from like the cinematic looking shot to like the close-ups that's actually shot with like the broadcast cameras.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Maybe that's what they did. They actually shot that scene with we need a pickup scene of a close-up of his face. So give me one of those broadcast cameras over here.
Yeah.
Because we already packed all this other shit up. I don't want to get it back out.
Yeah, I don't want to get it back out. Fuck this. Thomas Ackerman, he was like sick that day. So they just were like, fuck it.
Yeah, second unit got that shot. And he was like, what the fuck, guys?
But I don't know, Justin. All in all, man, I really enjoyed this movie. Maybe a little bit more than I should, because it's not the greatest movie ever. But I think having never seen it before, like knowing about it, but avoiding it and then watching it and be like, that was actually pretty solid. I
mean, to me, it's like, so this has like that same kind of weird. This is whenever like slashers were still trying to figure out their thing, because up until this, you had only had Black Christmas, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Halloween. And this is in 1980. So like, Friday the 13th was about to bust on the scene and stuff like that. So it was still a new genre. So this had that same vibe as like Christmas Evil, Don't Open Till Christmas, and those just really weird, like slow burn kind of films. But what I think separates this one from like Christmas Evil is it never gets dull. It's always like there's always something interesting going on. And with those other films, it's just kind of like you tune out,
Yeah. One thing too that I noticed about this is this really didn't have. Did the girl in the back seat at the drive-in, did it show any nudity? Like, I know that it almost did.
You barely see like one of her, like, it's not even like you see like half of her nipple, because he's like, so she's sitting in the back seat and she's like smoking a joint and her boyfriend's like rubbing on her and he's like, it's about that time, huh? And she just looks like she's having the time of her life. Like, he's sitting there like fondling her. She's smoking a joint and she's watching these drive-in movies and she's like smiling and stuff. And she's like, maybe next movie. Yeah. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Because I mean, if you think about it, like that wasn't really prevalent in a lot of horror. Well, it is after 1980, right? That became the thing.
Yeah, I mean, up till then though, the most you had was like PJ Souls and Halloween.
That's what I was gonna say is PJ Souls, and I'm trying to think about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'm trying to think about
I don't think Texas Chainsaw Massacre had any nudity.
Black Christmas, right? They I don't think they did.
Black Christmas.
But John Carpenter was all about showing some titties, PJ Souls, because that was like a good at least 3-second shot, and she's like, you see anything you like? You know what I mean? So like,
yeah. Well, then when he's strangling her with the phone too,
Yep.
and she's like got her hands up, like they purposely, I'm sure, like had her put her hands up to like struggle just to like expose her. So, but
But I mean, this
I
movie's
mean,
great, and I think it's fun because it really does show that early slasher. It shows
yeah.
a
Ooh,
lot of
actually,
those
I
things
do
that they're trying to
remember
develop.
there are one other random set of tits in this film. It's in the beginning. Remember when the punks are going down the road and
Oh yeah,
that
in the van.
the van pulls up and this other like chick's just ready to party, and it's like one of those with the sliding side door, and she opens it and she's just letting them fly out, you know?
Yeah, it's good old van flash by.
Yep.
I don't know, Justin. Like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. This will be put on my my yearly watch. For next year. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it again because, like I said, Christmas Evil, I will probably not watch that again for a long fucking time, if ever. Don't Open Till Christmas. I won't watch that one probably ever again. But like I said, I mean, it's filmed the same. It's almost even written in that same vein as those kind of films. It's just there's always something going on, whether it's like these weird cuts back to this band playing, or now we cut back to our killer and he's like chasing or stalking somebody, or now we're cutting to the cops trying to devise their plan to catch him. Like there's always something going on story wise. So I don't think it gets very stale. So it's not the most, it's not a cinematic masterpiece. It's not like over the top or anything. It's just, it's a good time. It's a good watch. So I'll definitely check it out again. I'll probably watch it every New Year's Eve now.
Yep. And I mean, I think that's basically it, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this movie because, like we said, it's pretty straightforward. The best part about it is your main antagonist, evil. The dude does a whole lot of shape shifting. Like I said, he dresses up as a preacher, he dresses up as a cop, he dresses up as,
In a fucking tracksuit, like a tennis tracksuit.
yeah, and like his original thing, he looks like a burglar with like a black toboggan and like a just a black, I don't know, sweatshirt and stuff. It's like really weird how he keep changing outfits.
Well,
it's
he's definitely got everything is like planned out. He's not, there's no way that he woke up the day before and was like, man, you know what? I'm going to kill my wife and I'm going to kill other people in every time zone at midnight. Like, this is definitely something that he had planned out, because even in the hotel, like there's that chest, right, that has the other outfit stashed away and the tools that he uses to override the elevator.
Yeah. I mean, he's been hating women for a long time because that's what he says. He says he's killing women because I can't remember what he says, because they're.
Well, he said it's mainly because they don't give him attention and they're manipulative. He's like the OG fuckboy, like thinking women owe him all this shit, and then he just snaps, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, yeah, I give this film, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
I give it an 8 out of 10 as well. Yeah, there's not much else to say about it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it, show it to your most beloved family member.
Yeah, no, there's not a whole lot of gore in this. There's not a whole lot of nudity. I mean, there is, there's blood, there's violence and stuff like that.
But there's not sex, right? There's not sex in it.
Yeah,
so.
there's no. He interrupts the only time they're about to have sex. Like, but this is the thing. Like, so when he gets into that car, and one last thing I want to say is like, what a shitty boyfriend. Like at the drive-in.
Yeah, he just
when he steals the car. He's like, yeah, I'm making out with my girlfriend, and he tells him, he's like, get the fuck out. And he's like, what the hell, man? He's like, where are the fucking keys? They're in the ignition, man. And then he just runs away, and the guy takes the car and he leaves his girlfriend in the back seat. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's fuck that.
Yeah. So I guess we're gonna wrap it up, because it is 11:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve at the time of recording this episode, and we're gonna go watch the ball drop with our families and that sort of thing. So Do you want to shout out your socials?
Yeah, I do. Last thing, guys, is here's to a better 2021, and expect a lot from Cinema Creep going into the new year, and
And Black Mass Films.
Black Mass Films as well.
In general.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully you guys didn't suffer so much through 2020. And check me out on all my socials, I guess, as a weird segue into that. But I'm at Drewcifer. That is DREWXCIFER everywhere.
Yep. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Justin James TV. And Black Mass Films is at Black Mass Films everywhere. And Cinema Creep on Twitter is Cinema Creep Pod. And our Instagram, which we are way more active on than Twitter, is Cinema Creep Podcast. So go give those a follow. Check out all the other stuff we got coming up. And hope you guys had a decent 2020. And hope you have a much better year in 2021. So that's going to be it for us. Stay creepy.
See you.